Everyone is born, but not everyone is born the same. Some will grow to be butchers or bakers or candlestick makers. Some will only be really good at making Jell-O salad. One way or another, though, every human being is unique, for better or for worse.
That is the opening to the 1996 film Matilda, an enchanting line that speaks to the power of neurodiversity. What is neurodiversity? Neurodiversity is the idea that people of different neurotypes such as autism, ADHD, or dyslexia can contribute to a better society by embracing their differences. That means neurotypical people, people without different neurotypes, and neurodivergent people working together. In essence, neurodiversity works by embracing our individuality for collective success. As we see early in the film, Matilda's parents are neglectful. While there has been research suggesting a relationship between autism and neglect, this is not always the case for autistic children. But for me, I think about it more abstractly. When Matilda is playing with her spinach, she writes her name in it. However, her mother doesn't notice this because she's concerned about the mess. While it is understandable for a parent under considerable stress to be worried about a mess, this highlights a way we as autistic people are not often understood by those who raise us. At a young age, Matilda learned how to take care of herself and pick up the pieces her parents would not do. And unfortunately, that's true for us. It's called adapting to your environment, and we autistic people do that a lot. That's why so many of us stick to rigid routines, because it's what works for us. It's how we adapt to the world. Her family leaves her alone and gives her canned soup for lunch, but instead she opts to make pancakes. Maybe the soup is a textural nightmare for her. I remember being left alone some summers and the food I was left was absolutely off-putting to me.
One night, she got up her courage and asked her father for something she desperately wanted. A book? What do you want a book for?
To read.
To read? Why would you want to read when you got the television set sitting right in front of you?
This is basically him saying, I don't understand you. Now, I'm not telling parents they should say yes to everything their kid asks for. That would be ridiculous. Instead, I am asking you to recognize their needs. Autistic people have different needs than neurotypical people. It's about finding reasonable, age-appropriate options within your budget. Again, autistic people have different needs. He could have said, what kind of book? We'll go to the library later this week and try to find it.
Matilda already knew that she was somewhat different from her family. She saw that whatever she needed in this world, she'd have to get herself.
We as autistic people often have intensive interests, and these should be encouraged. In our hyper-capitalist society, you would expect it to be the case. But no, it's the exact opposite. About 80% of autistic people are unemployed. Anyways, she goes to the library. Now that I think about it, how does she know what a library is, or even what a book is? I know she's brilliant, but her family doesn't seem like the kind of people who would make reference to libraries or books. Also, I know people will call out that a young child walking alone like that in a city is not realistic, but that's sort of how parts of society see autistic people. We're either the most brilliant people on the planet, or we're a substitute for the R slur. There's no in between.
These books gave Matilda a hopeful and comforting message. You are not alone.
Wow. Talk about something powerful and relatable. I think anyone marginalized or misunderstood in society, whether it be autism or queerness, can relate profoundly to that statement. I think in a lot of ways, Matilda speaks to the autistic experience, even if that wasn't the creator's intention. They also don't want to send Matilda to school because they didn't realize her age and need someone to look out for the packages. I think there's some sexism here if you read between the lines. Her brother Michael presumably goes to school because he's not with her all day. This is an example of intersectionality. I know a lot of words get tossed around in liberal circles, but intersectionality basically means how are two identities within the same person treated when together. Women and autistic are not just one and another. The treatment of each go hand in hand.
Sometimes Matilda longed for a friend, someone like the kind, courageous people in her books. It occurred to her that like talking dragons and princesses with hair long enough to climb, such people might exist only in storybooks. But Matilda was about to discover that she could be her own friend. that she had a kind of strength she wasn't even aware of.
It can be lonely being autistic sometimes. Especially as a child, I spent years of my time without any friends. Some advice for people in this situation. Don't change yourself, and be mindful of how others treat you. Don't let others take advantage of you or pity you for any reason.
When a person is bad, that person has to be taught a lesson.
Person?
Get up! Get up! Harry Wormwood had unintentionally given his daughter the first practical advice she could use. He meant to say, when a child is bad. Instead, he said, when a person is bad, and thereby introduced a revolutionary idea that children could punish their parents.
This may be the most autistic thing about the film, literal thinking. Do you think Matilda herself is autistic? Let me know in the comments. So then her father takes her and her brother to see his work, and he pulls scams to make cars look like they are in better shape than they actually are. Matilda is the only one who shows concern for other people. It drives me nuts how people say autistic people don't have empathy. We do have empathy. Once you tell us you're upset, we'll feel incredible empathy. There's also been research suggesting that autistic people tend to actually be less selfish than neurotypicals. And to that I have to say, no. Back at the house, they watch
Sticky with Mickey!
and Matilda's father hounds her for reading when they want to watch TV. Honestly, you got a reader. Be grateful. Although in this day and age, parents who don't want their kids to read is unfortunately common. All I'm saying is Matilda would have voted for Kamala, unlike her family.
What is this trash you're reading?
It's not trash, Daddy. It's lovely. It's called Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
Moby what?
I'm sorry, I can't help but think of how conservatives banned a book because the author's last name was gay. Now, I do have to give a warning for the rest of this video. I'm gonna be discussing ableism and ABA in detail for the rest of this video. So if you need to call it quits here, I totally get it. I have other videos you may enjoy.
I'm fed up with all this reading. You're a wormwood, you start acting like one. Sit up and look at the TV.
Users are not liable for any skin irritation. It may result from playing our game. Get real sticky and get cash for free. All right, that's enough. Let's get
Now, this is a bit of a triggering scene for those like me who went through ABA. One of the practices of ABA is physical restraints for conformity. It's abuse and wrong. Let autistic people be autistic. But then catharsis.
Matilda had always wanted to go to school because she loved to learn. She tried to imagine what her new school would be like. Go ahead. She pictured a lovely building surrounded by trees and flowers and swings. Well, there was a building and children. So regardless of what Crunchum Hall looked like, she was happy to be there. After all, any school is better than no school at all, isn't it?
As someone who went through ABA, I often ask myself that. I should probably talk about what ABA is. ABA is a program designed for neurodivergent people. On the surface, that sounds good, but in reality, it is about conformity instead of instilling independence. It teaches you how to act like everyone else and repress your own needs. Oftentimes, ABA targets non-problematic behaviors like stimming, a physical release of emotion. Neurodivergent children should be taught how to advocate for themselves within their uniqueness and not be ridiculed for it. For example, a kid in ABA may have textural sensitivity socks, and ABA teaches that kid to be silent about their discomfort, even if it feels like they're being enveloped by Mount Doom. What they should be teaching is how to advocate for themselves, verbally or non-verbally, that the socks made them uncomfortable.
It's better than being put in the chokey.
Chokey?
Yeah, the chokey. It's a tall, narrow hole in a wall behind a door. You have to stand in a drippy pipe with jagged edges, and the walls have broken glass and nails sticking out.
Inside, you festering ball of pus!
She puts kids in there?
I've been in twice. Sometimes she leaves you in there all day.
But didn't you tell your parents?
They didn't believe me. I mean, would your parents believe it?
I've tried talking about my experience in ABA, and sometimes it feels like I'm describing the chokey. Even to this day, when I talk about being an ABA survivor, oftentimes I get response back from ABA instructors telling me it's not that bad. If it's not so bad, why do nearly 86% of people who go through it develop PTSD? Even if it wasn't for the physical restraints being used in ABA, it would still be harmful. It would still be abusive. It messes with your brain on a fundamental level. It's psychological abuse on children. I've been deconstructing this abuse for years in therapy, and there's still more to go. It's a huge ordeal to deprogram. I remember seeing kids physically restrained for simply flapping their hands. And we were encouraged by the adults to shame other kids for stimming. ABA is so manipulative that they make you think it's okay. I wish we had someone to stand up like Matilda, but we didn't. Yes, there are teachers like Miss Honey, but remember, Miss Honey is complicit with the abuses at the school. Whenever I talk about ABA, I get a lot of heat from ABA teachers. I know you went in with good intentions, but you can't help by being part of the problem. You may think you're doing a good thing, but you are participating in an evil system. Honestly, the only thing that's unrealistic about this film is that there was a revolt against the system. Please, be like Matilda and stand up for what's right. Thank you to my patrons for helping make this video possible. Without you, this video couldn't have been possible. If you want to see an extended, uncensored cut of this video and others, please become a patron at patreon.com/SallyPrideDrag. And thank you for being here. Every day you're here is a beautiful day.